Hey everyone, Bo Pearson, strength coach consultant at Volt Athletics. Today's panel consists of three college coaches, NAIA and NCAA, who are willing to share their ideas and their strategies for keeping their teams connected and productive during COVID-19. Now, these are going to be strategies, especially now in this time where everybody's remote, but also ideas that can probably apply to a lot of small colleges or high school teams when you aren't able to have access to your athletes. So maybe that's summer break, maybe that's winter break, or deep in an off season. The point is that these coaches are willing to share. They're willing to give you insight into the strategies and ideas that have helped them so far during this remote scenario and help you plan for when practices and competitions resume at some point in the future. If you have any questions, let us know, but I hope you enjoy this conversation that we have with Alexa Matta from Siena Heights University, Andy Kaplan from Reinhardt University, and Jeff Thomas from the University of the Puget Sound.
All right, today we have a college coach panel. So we've gathered some coaches here from the Volt family to share about how they are navigating their training, navigating keeping their teams connected throughout COVID, and how we plan on returning to play, if and when things kind of return back to their normal state of being. So I'll go ahead and start introducing our guests today. On the top left of my screen, I've got Alexa. So Alexa is the head coach of Siena Heights University women's lacrosse. So they're an NAIA school in Adrian, Michigan. Alexa's really interesting because this was her first year taking over the program, and their season's typically in the spring, and so that season had to be canceled. So it'll be really interesting to hear from Alexa on how their team has navigated that, kind of dealing with that. And then also she's got some really cool insights when it comes to sharing social media practices and keeping the team connected that way. Lower left, I've got Andy here. So Andy's the head women's soccer coach at Reinhardt University in Waleska. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Waleska, Georgia, another NAIA school. Andy's been with that program for about, I think, 17 years, for a good amount of time, has been there, had several conference championships, recognized year after year for academic excellence as well, and has been using Volt for, 4 or 5 years?
5 or
5 or 6?
Pretty much about your first year, yeah.
For about as long as I've been at Volt. Maybe even longer. Maybe you out tenured me at Volt. And then Coach Jeff Thomas, down on my bottom right of the screen, head football coach, University of Puget Sound, NCAA Division III in Tacoma, Washington, which is actually where I grew up. So Jeff's been at UPS since 2010, right?
That's correct.
And took over a program that really needed to be built up. It wasn't in a great place when he took it over. So since then, year after year, been rewriting their school records and also just bringing that program back to a winning program. Prior to UPS was at University of Redlands, where I think you also played, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. And was a American Football Coaches Association Assistant Coach of the Year. So really appreciate all of you coaches taking some time to share your insight with us. Jeff, I wanted to kind of start with you. One of the questions I want to ask is, as you were kind of finding out about COVID and finding out what that might mean for your team, your school, what were some of the first things you did to just try and get ahead of it as much as possible and set yourself up for success?
Sure. I think that we're fortunate that a lot of the work we do is all cloud-based as a program with our players. So our playbook is online. We're able to use Volt. As a school, we're a Google school, so we use Google Drive and all the things that comes with that. So a lot of our work was already built in a position to be able to get it to our players remotely. In Washington, we were the first kind of wave of COVID. So we, right before spring break, our players went home and then they didn't come back. So then that happened the second week, I believe, of March. So for us, we went from planning for spring ball right after spring break to doing everything remotely. So it was a quick transition for us as coaches. I think that for the players, they're so digitally in tuned anyway. It wasn't as big a deal for them, but certainly for us, there was a lot of changes we had to make immediately.
Yeah. How did you go about kind of communicating that with your team? And you got, in contrast to Andy and Alexa, you have a really big team with a lot of guys. So how did you go about that?
We use Slack as a team. So we have a built-in team messaging app that we were able to communicate. The most important part of the communication wasn't really what we were saying. It was dissuading them from spreading gossip that can spread of, what was or was not going to take place. So I think having a steady hand with our team during those, especially those first 10, 12 days, alleviated a lot of stressors that otherwise would have taken place with our team. We give out a weekly update. And then as information from our school went to the students, we would always follow up with kind of a Q&A session to make sure they understood the ramifications of being out of the dorms for the rest of the semester, or what a room and board refund actually looked like and how to apply that. So it's given us an ability to be a steady hand with our players as they're working through this stressful process.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were really trying to help them out outside of just football, but also just like general student life and figuring that side of things out too.
Yeah, I think that any small school program all does multiple things, and then alongside gets to do their sport. And so I feel very, very good about the fact we've been able to be a steady hand and really helping, making sure our students are set up for success when they get back here in the fall. And I think that because of the work we did early on, it's given them a sense of belonging still here.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. So what is kind of the week look like now from a communication standpoint? Are you still setting up meetings with the team? Or?
So we're a Division III school, so I won't pretend to speak to the NAIA association. So we're all different in that regard. But for us, we just finished our non-traditional season. So it's the cliche spring football, which obviously we didn't have, but we were allowed to meet with our players and talk sports during that non-traditional 4-week period that we had. So we were able just to directly apply it. We've used Zoom meetings to have individual meetings about scheme, and then have offense and defense breakout sessions from there. Now that we're through spring football, now we but we can do team meetings and individual meetings, just not football specific. So every Wednesday we'll meet as a team. And I think the vast majority of the purpose of the meeting is everything that takes place right before the meeting, where they get to joke around with each other and, put up virtual backgrounds and, make fun of each other and just have, that team cohesiveness that quite frankly they're missing sitting in their room, talking with their parents.
Yeah.
Number one, I keep the start time a little bit elongated to give them that opportunity. And then I meet with them individually each week, and then our position coach also meets with them. So they'll get 3 points of contact from us every week. The majority of the time my meeting with them is like 3 to 5 minutes just to see them, say hello, how's everything going, how's the family, and if we happen to hit something lifting or academics, or that's a good bonus, but that's not the point. The point is that they just get to see people each week and be on a set schedule.
Yeah, for sure. I think what you mentioned about with the kind of the banter time at the beginning of meetings, like that's actually so valuable, right? Even though you might set up a meeting to do some core values or to watch film or whatever, sometimes it's just the getting connected in the first place that matters.
Yeah, no question. Certainly, I know a couple of guys enjoy that the most.
Yeah. Awesome. Andy, we talked a little bit about what you guys are doing and actually how your athletes are getting better at certain things through this circumstance. Can you kind of talk to that?
Sure. I guess what I would start by saying is that before the virus hit, it was working so well for us. We were just getting these awesome strength gains. I don't think I've ever had a team as locked in to the weight training as we were. So that's probably the most frustrating part from an athletic perspective, that we had to get away from that. As I told you when I spoke to you, I was incredibly thankful that Volt so quickly came up with the alternative workouts for us. That is basically we got the workouts right when the kids went home that they could do in their home. So we didn't miss a beat as far as the kids being able to work out. So what we do in the spring, it's something called the Queen of Spring, where everything we do is competitive. Every day points are awarded. And at the end of the spring season, the top 2 kids win a free pair of cleats. So everything we do is competitive. We're able to adjust that to the at-home stuff. And as a fall sport, I'd say spring season is a challenge for us all the time because NAI allows us to pretty much train 5 days a week through the entire spring if you knock out a couple weeks. So the kids lose interest because you're only allowed to play a couple of games. So spring is a bit of a challenge. So having these kids go home where they're doing something they've never done before, I think there's a little bit of freshness to what we were doing. So we have a group chat. Every day the kids have to post in the chat, one, if they completed their Volt workout for the day, that gets them 1 point for a Queen of Spring contest. They have to do a run of some kind, that gets them another point. And then we gave them this pretty intricate individual soccer skills program. And they have to video 2 or 3 of the exercises they do. And at the end of the day, I choose the 2 or 3 best, and those kids get 3 points each. We've linked academics to it. As soon as the semester's over, every A you get in your class, you get 3 points. So that contest is going to go to May 15th. May 15th, the top 2 kids will get a free pair of cleats. And it's just become this incredibly competitive thing where the videos just get better and better. And I'll tell you, I'm really struggling with choosing what videos are. And, you know, I'm getting a lot of grief that, come on, my video is better than that one. And I'm like, you're right. I don't know. So it's really blown my mind how well the girls have done. If this was every year, it would be awful from a soccer perspective, but I really feel like this spring has been one of the most productive we've ever had, that they're really working individually hard with the skills. I think, you know, whereas we're missing the weight training, I still think getting the 3 workouts a week you guys are giving us is really good. And cardio, they seem to be pushing themselves as well. And academically, we've usually been pretty strong. So all those are kind of coming together. I think it's really going to pay off for us. And then the other thing that I love is just seeing how much these messages of, I miss you guys so much, can't wait till we get back together. And I think that's been a positive. When something's taken away from you, you appreciate it more. And I think there really has been a great appreciation of their teammates and how much they miss each other and how excited they are to get back on the field together. So, you know, obviously this is a negative thing for our country and our community and all that. But trying to turn something negative into a positive, I think my girls have just done an amazing job with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure if there wasn't that strong culture beforehand, it would have been a lot more difficult to get something like this, right? But it kind of goes to show that kind of when you're tested, the truth will kind of come out, you know, and hopefully that's a positive thing for your team. It'll just become magnified. That's awesome, Andy. And then did you say, well, we'll talk a little bit, in a later part of this, I'll ask about what tools people are using, but Andy, did you say that you were using a tool for tracking all of the messages and the videos and stuff?
So we have a group text. It's through GroupMe.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I just get pounded with like 100 a day, which gives me something today to do also. So it pretty well.
Nice. Awesome. Alexa, so you and I talked a few weeks ago about, well, first we were kind of figuring out what are we going to do from a training standpoint with all of this going on. And then I kind of asked you about what you're doing to keep your team connected. So can you kind of talk about, especially the social media aspect, can you kind of talk about all of that?
We were definitely bummed when we heard about our season being canceled. But I think one thing that I have really pushed on our team this season is you can only control the controllables. And this is something that we obviously could not control. So what was something we can? And that is how we're going to come back and how much stronger we can come back as a team and as a family. And that's where we've really been pushing that. So I've been using social media as a way to keep us like active and involved. And every week we've been doing like a wall ball competition, and I'll put that up on our Instagram and our Twitter and our Facebook, just so that the girls feel that those touches that they're doing every week are valued. And every Wednesday we do a Instagram takeover. So we have one of the girls do a day in their life, and it's just something fun for them. And then I'm really, really big on making sure that the girls communicate to me based on like workouts they're doing. Obviously, we're really big on doing the Volt, and they love it. They've been really making sure that they send in every day when they're doing their workouts in our group meet based on like, I got my workout, or a lot of them have been doing Zoom workouts for their Volts as well. So they've been doing it all together. And I think that's so awesome, keeping that team atmosphere, because I felt like we were really getting that good part of season, especially since we were actually in season in spring. When this happened to us, we were only 4 games in. So things were finally just beginning to click. But unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. So we can just hope and really, really work on making sure that we continue to keep all of the family vibe and hard work that we worked on this season and bring it back in the fall when we come back. So you're muted.
My bad. I have landscaping going on outside my house. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you work so hard during all of your off season, and then, have to kind of shut things down. It's been really tough talking with coaches about that, but, I've been seeing similar trends where it's, you want to try and just control what you can and foster that team connectedness, and really just start kind of shifting your focus to the next year if you can. And maybe treat it even as just an extended off season for the next year.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So Instagram is what you've primarily been using for keeping your team connected?
Really big on Instagram. We also do like weekly videos. So we get like groups of like 3 of them, and we've done like a lip singing video. We did like a video of all of them passing the ball to each other, different states. This week we have one of all of our animals dressed up in Sienna gear. So we're doing like the pets of SU. So just like something to kind of keep them involved. But then it's also like a small little group that's still working on it. So like I told them, I was like, we'll probably do for next week, maybe this one, but after that, I don't know. And as soon as I said that, my phone blew up. 4 or 5 of them sent in videos. They're like, what about this one? What about this one? So they really enjoy doing that as well. So that's been really awesome.
Cool. That's really cool. I mean, even if it just seems silly, it's just something to kind of connect on. And I've had coaches do things from, having somebody teach how to cook a certain dish for the team, like just things that are just kind of out there, right?
Exactly.
But they're fun and they're different. And I think if there's any time to experiment with weird ideas, it's probably now, because I mean, why not? You gotta try pretty much any idea. You're just gonna throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And
see if it sticks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, you guys. So a couple of questions I had. I wanted to kind of lead, trying to think around the corner here and trying to think ahead of things. When it comes time to returning, I know right now none of us really have much of a timeline solidified. We're all kind of aiming at an ambiguous target in a way. But when that time does come, whether it's 3 months from now, whether it's 6 months from now, whatever it might be, how are you guys kind of thinking about making sure the athletes are able to return to play in a safe manner? Some people being connected or training more than others. Anybody want to speak to that?
Sure, I jump in. I think that's quite frankly where Volt helps us the most in a mass sport. I can't pretend to speak to individual sports, or smaller roster, but in a big roster, allowing myself the ability to build, in shape, didn't do any of the workout and only did some of the workout, allows us to get all of us moving towards the direction of that first game with only 23 days or so of preseason, and not putting them in a position of getting hurt while they're also learning their technical skills.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a major competitive advantage for us compared to, kind of the cliche football, go in and lift 3 sets of 8 or whatever,
Right.
Other people do. Our ability to really build customized workouts for our players through that feature, I think is going to be just extremely beneficial for us.
Awesome. And I'm sure for a contact sport or for collision sports, it's going to be pretty tough not having that time to acclimate to those collisions. I think that's a little bit outside of the scope of this conversation, but I know
Sure.
that's obviously
translating through.
yeah, that'll be pretty important to kind of think through how to manage that.
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
So we've transitioned to this non-weight program.
Yeah.
Whenever these kids can get back into a gym with weights, whether it's tomorrow, a month from now, 2 months from now, when they get into the Volt program, where would their individual weights be lowered since they probably would they have to recalibrate on their own? What would you suggest in phasing back into that?
Yeah, so there's a couple questions within that question. I think one, it's kind of like, I think the first question to kind of answer is, where do we start with each of our athletes? And I think that what we really need to do and make a conscious effort towards is figuring out where each athlete is initially, and figuring out where their floor is and where their ceiling needs to be, right? So understanding what that gap looks like for each of the athletes. And so once we know that, then we can decide, okay, do we need to have athlete A start in week 1 of a brand new program, hypertrophy week 1? Do we have enough time to do we have 12 weeks? Do we have 4 weeks? Whatever it might be. So from a scheduling standpoint, that's going to be pretty important. And obviously, if we are setting up our schedules appropriately in Volt, it's going to manage the load. So to answer the other question that's kind of weaved in there is, what will happen for athletes' weights when they jump back in to a loaded program? So their weights are going to, Volt or Cortex, our training AI, is going to remember what their previous strength levels were. And so that's what it's going to assign when they return, is based on their previous state. However, we're going to be able to use the Smart Sets feature to make sure we calibrate down or calibrate up. If somebody's been training super hard, they have their own gym at home, calibrate up or down based on where the athlete is at that point in time. So as long as they're using Smart Sets, and as long as the coach is setting up the right start date, your athletes should be right where they need to be and progress appropriately.
What would you anticipate is happening to these athletes' strength by doing the non-weight program you guys have given us?
Yeah, so again, it really depends how each athlete responds, and whether they lose strength and at what rate they lose strength is going to depend on their chronic workload leading up to when they started this. So if they already have a really strong and extensive strength base, they've been training for many, many years, they've built up a lot of strength over a long period of time, they're not going to see their strength decrease as rapidly as somebody who's really fresh. Now, we know that with high intensity interval training, the research shows us that it will slow strength loss. But obviously, if you go too long without loading the system, you're going to lose that. So that's kind of what it really depends on where the athlete is and what their training background looks like. Those who don't have as much strength are going to lose strength quicker, typically. And also power is going to be something that diminishes faster than strength, typically. So with power, we're talking about like sprints and repeat sprints, max velocity stuff. You're going to see that kind of trend down faster than you would with residual strength, most likely. So that's kind of what we can control during this time, though, is making sure that we are providing that high intensity stimulus enough to slow that decrease. We're finding out which of our athletes have access to what pieces of equipment. So even if they just have dumbbells, we can set them up on a dumbbell only program and try and load them as best as we can. And making sure that athletes are doing the training. That's what we can really focus on, and we can work on improving strength endurance and maybe lean muscle mass development, preserving that as well with these more high intensity interval training type of formats.
Thanks.
Yeah. Another question. So when it comes to, and just checking the time here, when it comes to remote learning and kind of the academic shift that athletes have had to make, how involved or how are you guys kind of supporting your athletes in that? Does it take a whole lot of effort on your end?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I know that for my girls, it's definitely been a big adjustment just because they were just so used to, especially like us being a smaller school. They had that one-on-one professor interaction. So it's just been kind of a adjustment now, having to word everything in an email to kind of ask questions and stuff. My thing is every week we do a Zoom meeting on Friday with the whole team just to kind of like hang out, talk a little bit, play games and stuff. But then on Tuesdays, I do Zoom meetings with my girls that have below a 2.8 GPA. And I just continue to stay on top of them and have them pull up their Canvas and let's see what assignments were missed. Why was it missed? How is our schedule going now? What's our everyday look like? We still need to be able to set a schedule still being at home. And that's been one thing that we've really been pushing is still wake up, still eat breakfast, still do homework, eat lunch, go outside. Make sure that you're setting that schedule, not just doing everything from the couch every day. It just makes it a lot harder to get stuff done. But I've just been trying to stay on top of the girls, let them know that I'm here for them. I FaceTime one of the girls at least every single day. I feel talking to them about grades or something. But the girls say that it's been a lot easier because talking to me when it comes to a lot of classes, the adjustment and stuff. But it's definitely been a big adjustment for them and everything that they've been going through. So I definitely would just say continue talking to them and letting them know that you're there for them.
Yeah, I've had I've had coaches kind of voice the idea that, especially maybe not as much, but definitely this still happens at the college level, but definitely for younger athletes too. Athletes just might not be used to setting things up for themselves, setting up their own schedules and making decisions on what they're going to do and when they're going to do it, because a lot of that gets decided for them. I don't know if you guys deal with that or have seen that, supporting your athletes in that. But, okay, so I kind of want to end with two more questions. One, I'd love to kind of hear what other technologies you guys are using, whether it's for schoolwork or it's for video conferences or it's reviewing film, tracking skills development, whatever it might be. Jeff, would you mind kind of maybe, we can kind of just go around kind of just sharing a couple different other technology tools that you're using to stay productive?
Yeah, we use, probably use technology almost to our detriment at times, I think. That I've yet to see a technology that I don't want to try to incorporate somehow.
Yeah.
So for football, we are a huddle school, just like I think the majority of college football programs, and we're trying to use different cut-ups to get that to the film to the players in different ways, just so that they can actually watch it. Our playbook is also online, which is a little bit unique. We use a program called Just Play Solutions, and it's nice for us because then we make one change and it goes to everyone. You don't have to remember to re-email out the playbook that some others have to deal with. Right now we're tinkering around with a product called Go Army Edge. It's a virtual reality. It's free. So you can take your playbook and drop it in, and it's like a Madden-ish version where you can go first-person view and use Google goggles, so our guys can buy $6 things on Amazon and be able to see our playbook in a three-dimensional space. We're not far enough along in it, but that's kind of three areas that we're really building towards.
That's really cool. Andy, anything else outside of GroupMe that you guys are using?
So the other thing is we put together every Sunday night our skills program. It's a Google document, and we have a video link for each exercise. So we actually have a video of somebody performing the drill, how we want it done. So that, some of the moves are pretty intricate and difficult. So I think that's really helped a lot. That, the girls can basically on their phone have it on the field or in their backyard with them and copy the moves that we're showing them.
Nice. Yeah, you're telling me that you guys do some pretty, like you said, pretty intricate and complex stuff for your skills. So that's important to be able to see how it's supposed to be done.
Definitely.
Alexa, you've talked a lot about different technologies and stuff, but anything else worth mentioning that you guys are using?
No, we do the wall ball sniper app, which I think has been really beneficial.
What does that do for you?
So it's just you literally just strap your phone to your arm, and our girls use 2 rubber bands if they don't have an armband, and it tracks your reps for lacrosse. So whenever you do wall ball, so every week the girls are required to get 1,000 reps on that. So it's just really awesome because it makes them actually hold themselves accountable, not being oh, I actually did it when they actually didn't.
Right.
So it's
right.
you can see it. And obviously social media has been a really big thing for us, but in Huddle, we only had 4 games to watch, but we still break those down and stuff, but that's pretty much all we use.
Nice. Cool. All right. Last question for you guys. If you were to talk to somebody else who's in a very similar scenario to you going through this, but maybe just at a different school, probably not in your own conference, but maybe, I don't know. What's one piece of advice that you would probably give to them, to that coach? Jeff, we can start with you again if that's fine.
Yeah, sure. One piece of advice would be to stay authentic. I think that that first couple of weeks, I saw a bunch of Twitter's not reality, but of what some other programs were posting of, all the different ways that they were communicating that they hadn't been communicating or doing 2 weeks prior. I think that there's something to be said about causing engagement, but doing it in an authentic way that causes long-lasting benefit rather than kind of having a sugar high and then all of a sudden a droll of now you've got all summer to get through.
Yeah. Awesome. Andy?
Yeah, I'd say the 2 things to me are if you can have daily contact, even an email, GroupMe, whatever, but just something that they're getting from you every day. And then for me, finding a way to keep things competitive. That, at the end of the day, when we get back into season, everybody's trying to win games. And so having 3, 4, 5 months where there's nothing competitive in their lives, I think would be a really bad thing. So finding ways for them to compete and give feedback to them on it, I think it's really important.
Awesome. And Alexa?
I think my biggest thing is communication. Talk to your girls, talk to your commits that you have coming in, let them know that things are normal and you're still working and stuff. Let the girls know that you're experiencing a first time kind of situation just like they are, but you guys are going to get through it together. But I would say communication is key. That's my biggest thing.
That's awesome. Thanks again, all of you, for sharing. And I think what's really cool and encouraging hearing from all of you is that there's kind of just this central theme for all of you is just staying connected with your athletes and supporting them and making sure that they're okay first before worrying about how many reps they're getting in or anything like that, right? So I think that says a lot. So again, appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for helping out and sharing what you have to share. Best of luck, stay safe, and best of luck for your teams as we move forward.
Thanks for putting this together. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.